In space year 2024, there's a lot of talk about the role of social media in our lives. Look up phrases like digital detox or digital minimalism, and you'll find days worth of YouTube think pieces, Reddit debates, and blog posts all about the evils of the smartphone. You'll also find this guy, Cal Newport, who's terrified of a bunch of illustrations. If you're not careful, it might be easy to get a bit intoxicated on their rhetoric. Visions of fashionable hipsters carrying around 20-year-old flip phones to just unplug, man. In my own freshman year of college, I found myself a bit horrified at how easy it was to simply sink into my own bed scrolling through Instagram, rather than go out and live my life. The thing is, though, I love the internet. It goes without saying that without YouTube existing, I wouldn't be here talking to all 12 of you, but really, I'd be a totally different person without the internet, and I quite like who I am. Especially as my own college years begin to drift further and further into the rearview mirror, social media has been one of the most valuable tools in keeping in contact with my friends and loved ones, some of them now hundreds of miles away. That being said, there certainly is something to all this hype. Does anyone else find it so much harder to get excited about things lately? Yes, nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses and all the other pejoratives that video essays love to use on the reminiscent. But really, as much as I love the internet, I have this sneaking suspicion that constant instant gratification isn't doing my head any favors. And I'm just gonna say it. Neither is the constant social media onslaught of people telling you the sky is falling. After all, if you're not upset about this issue, then you're just not paying attention. You know where I feel this kind of angst even stronger? Video games, man.
Fucking video games.
It's very rare these days that a video game releases that speaks to my specific sensibilities and what I look for in games. Some of my best adolescent memories take place in Mario Galaxy and Mother 3, these intense, highly atmospheric pieces that felt mysterious and divorced from the real world. These games had experimental mechanics and uniquely told stories. Look, man, I'm not saying I want every game to be Killer 7 and Linda Cubed, just that a few a generation would be nice. Into this climate, this entertainment landscape demanding bigger and more elaborate productions, burst the Playdate in early 2022. So, what exactly is it? The Playdate is a handheld game console created by Panic. You may know Panic better for publishing Untitled Goose Game as well as developing Firewatch. To most of the world, the Playdate was announced in 2019, and after the universe's every attempt to thwart an Oysterhead revival, released in April of 2022. There's a lot more history to this little guy than you might expect, though. As Panic co-founder Stephen Frank recalls in the excellent Playdate podcast, the initial concept of the Playdate began around 2011 as a way to commemorate Panic's 15th anniversary as a software company. After much toying with ideas like commemorative clocks and figurines, Panic would settle on the idea of creating a handheld games console, inspired by the old Game & Watch. The original idea was to create a seeming single-game console that would, without warning, switch games on a weekly basis. It was a novel idea that was just too costly to produce. Perhaps unsurprisingly, most industrial design firms scoffed at the idea of building an entirely new piece of video game hardware for a small team of developers with no third-party support yet confirmed. It wasn't until Panic found a little design firm called Teenage Engineering that the Playdate would truly get off the ground. If you're not familiar with Teenage Engineering, they make cool shit like this. Teenage Engineering state their goal as freeing us from our touchscreen psychosis with bold, colorful designs and discontinuous ideas. Their fun and functional design can be seen in the studios of some of my favorite musicians like Jazz Spastiks and Early Sleeper, as well as some of my most kindred YouTube tech nerds like Mr. Mobile. Now, I said above that Teenage Engineering are very into new ideas. Looking at the Playdate, that new idea might not entirely be obvious. And well, I'm just gonna say it. This thing is a crank. And it absolutely rocks. I love whipping out my crank at work and just playing with it. On break, in the bathroom. What? Brutal Moose already did this joke? And better? And now I'm making it worse by repeating everything you say into the microphone? Okay, so apparently the internet is extremely torn on this not all that new analog input method. Cries of gimmickry resounding from every thread discussing this handheld. Look, I don't think gimmick should be such a dirty word. I mean, a lot of things are kind of gimmicks, Buying music on vinyl is a gimmick. Organic food is a gimmick. This guy is a gimmick. It's fun, damn it. You guys remember fun, don't you? Actually, the crank is integral to what made me buy this console. This past December, a little game called Root Bear dropped on the Playdate store. That's right, this thing has Wi-Fi and an eShop, and it absolutely captured my heart when it went viral on Instagram Reels and TikTok. I know it might seem a bit stupid, but everything about this game is just so satisfying. The pop and the harp sting when you hit a perfect pour, the crank action, the soundtrack, the bears! It made me need this console, man. I also really identify with Root Bear's and a lot of other Playdate games' less is more approach. I don't need my video games to be my entire world. Sometimes the best thing is just a little bit of fun while on break at work or sitting on a bench. In general, I hear a lot of what were they thinking type talk from people who really don't get the Playdate. Why the crank? Why the non-backlit reflective e-ink-like monochrome display? Why such little graphical power? Why so small? I don't just read all these things as mistakes, though. They're deliberate stylistic and artistic decisions made by the creators and developers alike. There's actually another episode of the Playdate podcast where developer Bennett Foddy discusses how the Playdate's minimalism inspired his own, more minimalist approach to developing his game Zipper, a very low-key and quiet strategy game. The game Zipper doesn't want your constant attention, and neither does the Playdate, which stands in starker and starker contrast to today's landscape of always-on displays, constant notifications, and ever-updating news feeds. Real talk, though. My biggest issues with the current gaming landscape aren't ballooning game scopes and daily challenges. Rather, it's a more profound creative issue. It feels more and more like every project is trying to appeal to everyone all of the time. Every drama feels the need to poke fun at its own seriousness, and conversely, every comedy tries and fails to shoehorn in real issues. It's just kind of expected that everyone likes everything, and every game, every movie, any album is made for everyone. Not liking any given piece of media is more and more becoming a moral position, or you're just a big ol' hater. In this abrasive atmosphere of artistic apathy, I get a real kick out of something like the Playdate, a console made for a very specific group of people, and if you don't get it, you just don't get it. The Playdate isn't trying to appeal to you, sorry. Perhaps it's because of this connection that the system has such a great fan base, too. Sure, Panic's own stereo dock accessory has been stuck in factory hell for over a year, but who needs that dock when fans have come up with dozens of 3D printable designs? I personally have no problem with the lack of screen lighting, but fans are working on a crowd-funded backlight solution, and that's just cool as hell. All over the Playdate subreddit, you can find fan-made cases, 3D printed replacement shells, worm lights. It's a really beautiful community. Just as I was finishing up this script, I was reading the damn Playdate magazine, wherein I found a list of fan sites dedicated to this thing. This is the kind of niche fandom I crave, microcultures that don't have to include every single earthling with a Wi-Fi hookup, and kind of feel richer for it. Now, none of this would matter if the games weren't fun. Included with the system's $200 price tag is a season of 24 games developed by Panic and other like-minded indies. Now, despite the season terminology being used, once you've got these games, they're yours to keep. Rather, the term season refers to a season of a TV show, as these games are downloaded to your device on a weekly basis. For a while after I got it, one of the best parts of my week was waking up on Monday morning, seeing that flashing purple light, and excitedly checking out what new games I had to play. Among this lineup of games are Casual Birder, a Pokemon-like RPG focused on extreme bird watching, Pick Pack Pup, a novel take on the old Match 3 puzzle game, Saturday Edition, a retro point-and-click adventure about a man who was abducted by aliens 30 years ago, and this addictive puzzle game that kind of defies any expectation. Its creator, Gregory Kogos, described the game as a top-down puzzle platformer, and that kind of works better than I could ever describe it. The standout by far from Season 1 has to be Kranken's Time Travel Adventure. This Kaizo-hard action puzzler was developed by Keita Takahashi, creator of Katamari Damacy, and Ryan Moeller, creator of a LinkedIn page. This game has a unique mechanic where you wind your main character through time on a set rail, all while obstacles bombard you on their own clock. At first, the game seems like nothing more than a cute little assault on taste, with its prevalent fart sounds and replayable ball kicks. But then it starts throwing pig stampedes at you, endless lines of screaming birds fly at your head, and walking piles of poop amble at your feet. Then, when you think you finally made it to your date, a gnome throws a deadly boomerang at the back of your head, one you could have never seen coming. It's so fun and unfair and replayable. It had me crying tears of equal parts laughter and rage. And somewhere along the way, I realized that this was the most engaged I've been with a game in a long, long time. And then I played Island. Island is a very unique and profound experience. It's a lot like those old RPG Maker games like Yume Nikki and To the Moon. In Island, you control this little dude who finds himself going to sleep on his quiet island home, only to wake up in a vast desert. I really don't want to spoil any of this crazy story or its emotional beats, but I could tell you my experience playing it. Ever since getting a Playdate, I had been told I had to play Island. It was this unforgettable experience and all that. Finally, I scraped together the $2 to download it. I waited and waited for a perfect night to really sink into the adventure, but man, life gets busy. Finally, one night, having to get up for work in about T-minus 6 hours, I cracked a Corona and pressed play. I immediately found myself sucked into the game's world and its characters, its delicious atmosphere holding my attention for the entirety of its roughly 2-hour runtime. By the end of it, I felt a confusing mix of emotions, but chief among them was resolution. There's so much more I could talk about, from Lucas Pope's brand new game for the system, Mars After Midnight, to how much I love Panic's design language and aesthetic. Above all, though, the Playdate has made me realize something. When I long for the good old days of the internet, it's not that I just want to watch sketch comedy come back into fashion, or that I hate these damn video games these days. Really, what I miss is a world where every object in my life's greatest aspiration wasn't to take up all of my time. Smosh videos weren't hour-long dissertations that wished to stir up anger and discourse. They were fun 5-minute distractions to share with your friends and brighten your day a little. Mario Galaxy, all-encompassing as it seemed, didn't want to keep me constantly inundated with daily challenges and friend requests to play on my FOMO. The Playdate does not want me to play it all day. Really, social media and my smartphone are great tools. They help me keep in touch with my loved ones and discover new things. And it's also not lost on me that I discovered the very topic of this video through social media. You know, just as I was beginning production on this video, all of these ideas bouncing around in my head, my fancy folding phone suffered a catastrophic screen failure, leaving me phoneless for about a week. Don't live in a rural town. I found myself surprisingly able to adapt to life without a smartphone, even taking a bit of joy in living a week back in 2009. Everything I really needed to do was easily offloaded to my laptop, and everything else could wait. It was kind of a nice vacation from the constant notifications and depressive circle jerking. Maybe then, what all us wistful 20-year-old boomers need isn't a dumb phone or some overpriced light phone. It's just to use the internet a tiny bit less, to take in the world around us and not let advertising companies prey on our brain chemistry. Have a great night, guys, and keep on